Okay, let's unpack this. We've got a stack of sources here digging into something pretty fascinating. Bitcast.
Yeah, specifically Subnet 93 on the Bittensor Network.
Exactly. And our listener, the learner, sent this in. They're looking for, a shortcut, a way to quickly grasp what this is, how it works.
And crucially, is it worth paying attention to? Especially in this whole buzzing Web3 creator space.
Right. And this is where it gets really interesting, doesn't it? Bitcast is trying something, well, pretty novel.
Definitely. It's right at that intersection of decentralized networks like Bittensor and the huge world of online content, influencers, all that.
The big question, I suppose, is can a decentralized network really shake up that space?
Yeah.
I mean, it's dominated by giants right now.
Well, the source material we're looking at, it's mostly an investment research analysis, which is great.
Yeah, it forces a hard look, doesn't it? Beyond the hype, into the mechanics, the potential, but also the risks.
Big time. So our mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. We're going to walk you through this analysis.
Yep. We'll pull out the key insights, highlight the cool ideas Bitcast has.
But also shine a really bright light on the potential problems, the red flags the source mentions.
Exactly. So you walk away feeling properly informed about Bitcast itself.
And just as important, you'll have a better sense of the questions you should be asking about any project like this, in this fast-moving area.
Couldn't agree more. Ready to jump in.
Let's do it. So, okay, foundation first. What is Bitcast? Subnet 93 on Bittensor.
Right.
The sources say it's basically a decentralized platform trying to connect brands and creators, initially focused on YouTube creators.
And Bittensor itself is what? Like the underlying network for AI stuff.
Yeah. Think of it as a network for decentralized AI, machine learning. Subnets are like specialized apps running on top. Bitcast is the one for this brand creator thing.
Gotcha. And the goal is to reward creators based on engagement. Right.
Yeah.
But like verifiable engagement.
Exactly. Using Web3 incentives, crypto rewards, trying to bring some transparency to influencer marketing, which can be a bit murky sometimes. And the analysis says its initial mission was actually pretty specific.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
Its goal was, and I'm quoting roughly here, to supercharge the Bittensor ecosystem. Basically, get creators making content about Bittensor.
Ah, okay. So promote itself first. A built-in early use case.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Exactly. Before maybe trying to branch out.
So who benefits here? The analysis breaks that down, right?
It does. For creators who are called miners in Bittensor language, they get to earn crypto.
Directly for their content.
Yep. And the rewards are tied to performance. Specifically, the source mentions minutes watched on their YouTube videos.
Interesting. And it mentions no lock-in contracts or anything like that?
Not mentioned in the sources, no. Seems more flexible, potentially.
Okay, and for brands?
A potentially easier way to commission content, get exposure. Initially, it seems aimed at brands within the Bittensor world wanting promotion.
And Bittensor itself gets a boost from all this creator content.
Right. Promotion, adoption, push. It fits that initial mission.
So it's basically an incentive marketplace running on Bittensor's rails.
Pretty much. Using the network for consensus, rewards, that sort of thing.
Okay, that's the concept. But how does this engine actually run? The analysis must get into the tech, the mechanics.
Oh, yeah. So, key parts. You've got the miners, the YouTube creators making videos for these briefs.
Briefs from brands, setting out what they want made.
Exactly. Then you have validators. Their job is critical. They're the ones checking YouTube analytics, usually via something called OAuth,
Yeah.
to verify those engagement numbers.
Okay, miners, validators, brands publish the briefs. And you mentioned something about where those briefs live.
Yeah, the analysis flags the briefs are hosted on an off-chain server.
Off-chain, so not on the Bittensor network itself.
Correct, which is, well, it's a point of centralization.
Meaning someone controls that server, controls the list of tasks?
Potentially, yes. It introduces risks around control, censorship, availability, things a fully decentralized system tries to avoid. It's definitely something the analysis noted.
Good flag. But the actual payouts, the rewards, that happens on Bittensor.
Right, the on-chain compensation reward distribution that uses Bittensor's TAO token and the subnet's own token. The network handles that final step.
Okay. And how does that validation work? What are they actually measuring?
The main metric mentioned is minutes watched on the YouTube videos.
Just minutes watched.
Seems to be the primary one, yeah. They use a 7-day moving average of it, and there's apparently a 2-day delay in getting the rewards out.
Why the delay?
Because that's how long the source says YouTube's API takes to give them verified data.
Right, okay. Now, the emissions model, how the rewards are distributed, That sounded unique.
Yeah, it does. Initially, it's an equal slice of rewards per brief, but then there's this thing called collaborative emission scaling.
Collaborative scaling.
Yeah.
The source called that novel. Right. Experimental.
Exactly. It's a really interesting idea. The goal is to try and stop it being just a zero-sum game where creators fight over a fixed pot of rewards for one brief.
How does it do that?
The idea is, if the total engagement, total minutes watched across all videos for a brief goes up, then the total pool of rewards for everyone on that brief also goes up.
Huh. So success for one potentially benefits all contributors to that brief. That is different. Incentivizing collaboration almost.
Kind of, yeah. Or at least collective benefit. The analysis says the model adjusts the emission rate based on that total engagement. More engagement, more rewards overall for that brief.
What about the burn mechanism? The source mentioned that too.
Right. If there are TAO emissions allocated to a brief, but they don't get fully paid out to miners, maybe not enough good content or not enough views,
Okay.
those unused tokens get burned.
Yeah.
Sent to a dead address, basically, using a specific network ID. Gone forever.
And the thinking is that could reduce the supply over time, make the tokens scarcer.
Potentially, yeah. Could create deflationary pressure on the subnet's alpha token if it happens consistently.
Got it. And what does this all depend on technically?
Participants need specific Python software. There's that massive dependency on the YouTube API and whatever rules YouTube sets.
Yeah, that sounds fragile.
Very. And of course, it all relies on the main Bittensor network running smoothly underneath.
Okay, vision, mechanics, check. But where does Bitcast fit in the market? It feels like a crowded space.
Oh, absolutely. The analysis puts it in several buckets. The massive creator economy, influencer marketing, where you have Web3 agencies like Ninja Promo popping up.
Right.
Then decentralized content platforms, and maybe most importantly, competition within Bittensor itself.
Right.
Loads of other subnets vying for attention and resources.
The source used that Porter's 5 forces model, right, to size up the competition.
It did. Useful framework. First, threat of new entrants.
High, I'm guessing. Easy to spin up a new platform.
Hi, yeah. Especially on Bittensor, technically launching a subnet isn't the hardest part, though getting users is tough. And outside Bittensor, new Web3 creator platforms emerge all the time. The barrier isn't just building, it's getting people to actually use it. Network effects.
Okay. Bargaining power of suppliers.
Yeah.
The creators.
Also, hi. Good creators have tons of options. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, other Web3 things. Bitcast needs a really strong pitch to pull them in.
And YouTube itself is a supplier here, in a way.
The ultimate supplier, according to the analysis, their control over the API gives them huge power. That's highlighted as a major dependency risk.
Makes sense. What about the buyers? The brands paying for content?
Medium to high. The early ones, probably from inside Bittensor, might have medium power. But if Bitcast wants outside brands, paying real money.
They'll have lots of choices.
Exactly. High power, they'll demand proof it works, ease of use. They can easily go to established Web2 agencies or platforms. Why deal with crypto complexity unless there's a clear benefit?
Threat of substitutes. Other ways to do this?
Hi again. Established Web2 players like Upfluence. Emerging Web3 competitors, the source mentioned Assister. Access Protocol, only one. And even within Bittensor, you have other subnets focused on promotion, like BitAds or Wombo AI.
Wow. Okay, last one. Intensity of rivalry.
Hi. Fierce competition for stake and attention on Bittensor. Fierce competition for creators everywhere. Fierce competition for brands everywhere. It's a tough neighborhood.
So the takeaway is, it's a real challenge.
Huge challenge. The analysis basically says Bitcast needs to find a defensible niche and somehow deal with that massive YouTube dependency, which, ironically, many other decentralized platforms try to avoid altogether.
Okay, innovative idea, complex mechanics, tough market. Now, the part that often gets glossed over.
Yeah.
The problems. The analysis seemed pretty direct about weaknesses and risks.
Very direct. It flags several issues as not just minor problems, but critical risks.
Critical. Okay, what's the first big one?
Red flag number 1, labeled critical. No documented independent security audit.
Oof. In Web3, handling money. That sounds bad. Why is it so critical?
Because if you're handling value-staked TAO, the subnet's own SN93 tokens that miners earn your code has to be checked by experts. Smart contracts, even the off-chain bits. Without an audit, you're wide open to bugs, exploits.
Right.
People could lose their funds.
And the source couldn't find any evidence of one.
Nope. Even mentioned issues finding basic security info on their GitHub. For anything involving crypto or tokens, an audit is table stakes. It's a huge red flag that it's missing.
Okay. Critical risk 1. No audit. What's number 2?
Also critical. Ambiguous or unknown dedicated team.
What does that mean exactly?
The analysis found that some names sometimes floated around Bitcast, Sherman, Goal seem linked to an old, totally unrelated project from like 2014, nothing to do with Bittensor or Web3.
So not the current team.
Apparently not. The source couldn't find clear info identifying who is actually leading and building this Subnet 93 right now.
And why is that such a big deal? Anonymity isn't uncommon in crypto sometimes.
True, but for a project asking for stake, handling rewards, needing to build a business,
Yep.
you really need to know who's behind it. You're betting on their skills, their experience, their commitment. An unknown team makes it impossible to judge that. It massively increases the risk. The analysis calls this out strongly.
Okay, no audit, unknown team. Critical. What's red flag 3?
Back to something we touched on, the extreme dependency on the U2 API.
Right. The analysis flags this as critical too.
Yes. Critical and high risk, calls it a single point of failure. If YouTube changes its API terms, restricts access, raises prices, whatever.
Bitcast breaks.
Potentially, yeah. Its whole core function of verifying engagement could stop working. And that's completely out of Bitcast's control.
Yikes. Okay, number 4.
Critical red flag 4. An unproven external revenue model.
Meaning how it makes money besides the initial network rewards.
Exactly. Right now, the incentives, the rewards, are funded by TAO emissions from Bittensor. But those emissions decrease over time, like Bitcoin halving.
So it needs another income source to survive long term.
Absolutely. It needs real paying brands from outside the Bittensor bubble. The analysis found no clear evidence of a plan, let alone success, in attracting those external customers. Without that, its long-term financial health is a huge question mark.
4 critical flags. Are there others mentioned, maybe less severe?
Yeah, quite a few other weaknesses and risks. The subnet's own token, SN93, probably has low liquidity, high volatility. It makes it hard for people to cash out rewards reliably.
Okay.
That off-chain brief server we mentioned, centralization risk. Limited public performance data. The source had trouble verifying KPIs, checking dashboards like wanb.ai or Tau stats for the subnet.
Hard to tell if it's actually working well.
Exactly. Governance seems centralized around the subnet owner. Plus the usual market risks, regulatory uncertainty, and the big one, just failing to get enough users, that network effect problem.
And the analysis made a point about how the big risks amplify the others.
Yeah. Like if there's a critical bug because there was no audit, who fixes it if the team is unknown? If the plan to attract brands is tricky, who executes it if the team isn't clear? The core issues make everything else riskier.
Right. Okay, let's shift to the money itself. Tokenomics, financials. How does the analysis say Bitcast gets value initially?
It comes from those TAO emissions from the main Bittensor network. Subnets compete for these daily rewards based on how much TAO is staked to them by the community. More stake relative to others means a bigger slice of the TAO pie.
And then there's the subnet's own token, SN93. The alpha token.
Right. That's what the miners and validators on Subnet 93 actually earn. Its value is kind of derived from the TAO backing the subnet, plus whatever activity and perceived value the subnet itself generates. And that burn mechanism we talked about affects its supply.
The analysis gave a snapshot of the SN93 market, right? Price, volume.
Yeah, around early June 2025, it was trading about $1.48 with roughly 386K in 24-hour volume per the source data.
But with a warning.
Yeah, the analysis generally flags that these individual subnet tokens can be pretty illiquid, very volatile, so relying on selling them might be risky for users.
So back to sustainability. The report really hammers the need for income beyond those TAO emissions, especially with halvings coming.
Absolutely. That network subsidy won't last forever at the same rate. Without a clear working plan to get external revenue, actual paying customers, the long-term picture looks very uncertain, according to this analysis.
It mentioned a potential positive feedback loop, but also the reverse.
Yeah, the idea that if the token price goes up, maybe it attracts more stake, which earns more TAO, which boosts the price, a virtuous cycle. But the flip side is the risk of a death spiral. If things go wrong, falling price, less stake, fewer rewards, price falls more.
Okay, putting it all together. Concept, tech, market money, and those big red flags. How does the analysis try to value this thing? What's the bottom line?
Well, first it says valuing something this early with so many unknowns and issues is really hard. You can't just plug numbers into a model easily.
Makes sense. So it's more qualitative.
Yeah. It compares Bitcast to others. Among Bittensor subnets, it's classed as experimental and niche, way less stake in earnings than the top dogs. Compared to other Web3 competitors like a sister, A sister might have clearer funding or traction, even if the focus is different. And compared to Web 2 giants, tiny stale.
And the analysis saw a gap between the token price and the fundamentals.
It did. It noted the SN93 price had gone up recently based on market data, but it questioned if that was based on solid progress or more just speculation, general Bittensor hype, or people cycling money between different subnet rotation.
Suggesting the price might not reflect the underlying risks.
Pretty much. Given the lack of audit, unknown team, YouTube dependency, no proven revenue, the price action seemed potentially disconnected from those fundamental weaknesses, according to the source.
So the final investment conclusion from this analysis, straight up.
Unfavorable for prudent fundamentals-focused investor at this time.
Unfavorable. And the core reason.
Those critical, unaddressed risks we covered. No audit, ambiguous team, the YouTube dependency, the unproven revenue model. The analysis basically says these issues fundamentally undermine its viability right now and outweigh any speculative appeal.
Okay. So if someone listening is interested and wants to keep an eye on Bitcast, what needs to change? What concrete things would this analysis say need to happen for that unfavorable view to potentially shift?
The analysis lays out a clear checklist, essentially, things you'd need to see.
Okay.
1, a full independent security audit made public, non-negotiable,
Okay.
clear identification of the team. Who are they? What's their track record? What's the roadmap? Need transparency there?
3.
Proof of attracting, paying external brands, real revenue, not just network rewards,
Hold on.
tied to that, a sustainable business model that actually works long-term.
5.
Some kind of real strategy to deal with that YouTube API dependency. Reduce that single point of failure.
6.
Better liquidity for the SN93 token, a more mature market around it.
And 7.
Accessible, verifiable data, proof that it's actually working, hitting targets. Transparency on performance.
That's a significant list.
It is. And the analysis adds that even if all that happens, it's still a bet on Bittensor itself succeeding, and there are still questions around how centralized the subnet control really is.
Right. So fixing the critical issues moves it maybe from unfavorable to highly speculative, watch closely, but still high risk.
Exactly. It wouldn't suddenly make it a safe bet.
Wow. Okay. So this deep dive really brought out that core tension with Bitcast based on these sources. You've got this innovative idea hitting big trends, decentralization, creator economy.
Yeah, exciting potential on paper.
But then you slam into these really fundamental challenges. Basic security checks missing, uncertainty about who's even running it, reliance on a giant like YouTube, and no clear path yet to making actual money long term.
And that really highlights why doing this kind of deep dive is so important, right? It's about getting past the initial pitch.
Absolutely. It's about learning to look under the hood, understand the mechanics, and crucially, identify those risks that maybe aren't advertised on the front page.
Cutting through the hype to see what's really there or what's missing.
Yeah, and this wasn't just about Bitcast, was it? It's about showing you, the listener, the kinds of tough questions you should be asking about any new project in these areas. Web3, AI, it's moving fast.
You need that critical lens. Business model, dependencies, team, security, these apply everywhere.
They really do. They're fundamental checks.
Yeah, absolutely. Signs of basic viability and trustworthiness.
So it leaves us with a thought, doesn't it? Given Bitcast's struggles, according to this analysis, with things like relying on YouTube, needing clear teams, needing audits, it makes you wonder, for projects aiming for decentralization, what level of centralization or reliance on outside platforms is actually okay? Where do you draw the line? Something for you to think about.